G'day everybody and welcome to another episode of Automotive Carnage. In today's episode, I actually have no idea what we're going to do. Haven't planned anything, but that's okay because we have all of these to play with. Let's find something to do. G'day everybody, my name's DJ and thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Automotive Carnage. As I said before, this video kind of has no kind of goal. We're just going to go start playing with a bunch of vehicles. When you've got 22, 24 different cars, there's always something that needs to be done. So today, we're just going to go through and play with all the little bits that have been annoying me on the vehicles that we have at this location, because when you've got 22 cars, you can't have them all in one place because then people will know that you've got a mental illness. But moving on from that, I think we will start with a vehicle that's not even in this lineup, that's somewhere else on the property. And actually, this will be the first episode I've filmed here at the new HQ for Automotive Carnage, which I'm absolutely excited about. And we'll take you inside the shed, check out this vehicle, and show you why we're so excited about this new place. Here we are in the new shed, which will become the Automotive Carnage headquarters. And the main reason we are so excited about this new property is that big blue beast right behind us. That's right, we finally have a hoist that we can do all of our mechanical repairs on, and we've already done a couple of small jobs off camera, and it's just so much easier to work with one of these. So, biggest tip for working on vehicles, if you can, get a hoist, man, especially now they're so cheap, like two and a half to $4 grand, depending on what kind of brand you go for. Absolutely fantastic. This one came with the house when we brought it, and I couldn't be happier. So this is why we're so excited to be working in this new position. And if we come around the corner here, we will find tucked away, the German, yeah, that's right. We have a Mercedes 180E. Although it looks absolutely identical to a 190E, this is the Australian only 180E version. So let's pull it out of its dusty little cave. It's very, very dusty, the poor thing. Hasn't had a wash for a long time. Let's pull it out and get up on the hoist, and I'll show you what we have to do to it. Here we have a 1992 Mercedes-Benz 180E. And I guess the first question you might all be asking is, why do you have a Mercedes-Benz 180E or a Mercedes-Benz at all, for that fact? And quite honestly, it's just because I really like them. Growing up, we used to have a red 190E, and I absolutely loved that car. Driving that thing was awesome. Even though I spent more time in the shed with Dad fixing it than we ever did driving on the streets, still absolutely loved it. It was the first prestigious car that we owned as a family, and it just really stuck in my head. So when the opportunity came up to get this one, which is, get this, it is fully functioning, it runs and drives, it is road legal, like I can actually drive this on the street, it's got number plates. I had to say yes, because it was really cool. So how do we get it? A while ago, we had a VY Crewman Cross 8, so the LS1 four-wheel drive. I managed to rescue that from one of my mates out in the bush. He was just going to absolutely destroy it on the rough roads out in the Australian outback. So I'm like, I'll buy you a more appropriate Mitsubishi Pajero, way better off-road than this four-wheel drive Crewman's going to be, and I'll take the Crewman off your hands, fix it up, and we'll sell it on. So he's like, yep, sweet. So I gave him a turbo diesel Pajero, and I ended up with his white Crewman. I thought everyone would love that, being an LS1, being four-wheel drive, being a bit different. The height of COVID, so all the prices are going crazy, and not one person offered us serious money for it. I think the best offer we got was like $5 grand. And I'm like, dude, that's what you're paying for an LS1 in that market. They're a little bit cheaper now, but in that market, an LS1 was going for like $5 grand with the transmission. So Nick came up with a trade. He's like, hey, I like your Crewman. I don't have the cash, but I got this. And I'm like, you know what? I would rather have a car that no one wants to buy that I like, rather than a car that no one wants to buy that I don't like. So I ended up swapping him. I got the 180, and yeah, it's not what I remember. And why is it not what I remembered? Because it is so slow. I swear, my 1975 Mini back in the day was faster than this thing. It is horrendously, it can't be get out of its own way. So, despite that, I still love it. Like driving it with that, steering down that pointer star in the front, absolutely amazing. If you get an opportunity to get a Mercedes with the hood ornament, just get one, just drive one for a day, and just having that symbol in front of you, it's just like, we've made it in life. Anyway, enough ranting. This one has been lowered. It's got 17-inch monoblocks on it. Besides that, an aftermarket stereo, a immobilizer, pretty boring modifications. It's had power windows put in it at some time as well. The 180s, they only ever had wind-up windows. So someone's retrofitted power windows into this sometime in its life, which is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it's pretty standard. I've got ideas, but then it's like, do I do those ideas or not? I don't know. What we have to do today is the front wheel bearings. Yeah, they're a little bit wobbly in how you're going. So let's get it up in the air, whip them out, put the new ones in, and also this wheel scrubs because it's too big, so we've got to do a bit of massaging. There we go, that's everything done on the Mercedes 180e for now. We have replaced all of those wheel bearings at the front and given a bit of a massage up in here around the fender so that we can actually stop that scraping that's going on. Also, I found out that this front wheel is actually moved forward about 15 mil further forward than what this side is, which is also causing a bit of an issue. So we're going to take this car to go get a wheel alignment and hopefully they can pull that wheel back into line. Besides that, we'll give it a good bath, and then honestly, I think we'll probably sell this vehicle. It is way too nice for us to modify or to play around with. So I think, yeah, we'll pull it up for sale and move on to the next person who will actually appreciate it for what it is. I've had fun owning it for a couple of months that I've had it. But yeah, I think we'll use the funds from this to go fund some of the other projects that we are currently working on. Now, speaking of which, let's get the Prado in here, our daily driver, and see what needs to be done on that. Right, next up on the hoist is my 1998 Toyota Prado. This vehicle right here is the very backbone to our channel. This is our bush rig that we use to go out and to find all the wrecks that we find in the bush. Plus also it's what we use to tow them home when we finally get permission to do so. So this thing gets used and abused, and luckily thanks to Petter's suspension down at Cannington in Perth, they hooked us up with some absolutely, like, pretty much a full catalog of big suspension, shocks, springs, bushes, lower control arms, upper control arms, all sorts of stuff, and it's absolutely fantastic. So it rides beautifully now, and it's got all brand new brakes in it, but as you can hear, oh, she was a bit squeaky coming in. Now it doesn't want to squeak. So we've got to get it up, find out what's going on there. We have braided brake lines that we need to chuck on there as well because the rubber ones are starting to perish. Plus, like all Toyotas of this generation, it now has a Bluetooth handbrake, so we've got a brand new cable to chuck in there as well. So, trusty old girl's going to get some love. We might check the fluids as well, make sure they're okay. And I got so many parts lying around for this, but some are here, some are still up in the gold field, so whatever we have here, we'll start slapping into this vehicle. Let's get into it. there we have it. The Prado is now back on the ground. It's got all brand new braided brake lines and a brand new brake cable in there as well. Took a lot longer than expected due to nuts and bolts just being in very awkward positions. But as you can see from the rubber one we took off, it definitely needed to be replaced. There's huge cracks in there. So they're all like that. So now I feel a lot safer driving this vehicle. What's next? We just need a really good wash. It looks like I've just gone through too many salt lakes, and that's what's gunked up all the rubbers and the joints of suspension, and that's why it's creaking so much. So a good wash and a bath will solve that, I feel. Fluids are all good. Let's get this out of the shed, and yeah, let's go for a walk down the paddock and see what else there is to play with. Here we go, we are back over at the stables where most of our collection is kept, and let's just start at one end and work our way through, and we'll just go through a brief description of what each car is and what it's here for. There's a few new people on the channel, so this is a quick rundown for you fellas and a bit of an update on the previous viewers to show you what is going on with all of these cars. Anyway, let us start off with this 1998 Toyota Camry. That is our Demolition Derby car. This thing is an absolute beast of a vehicle, and this is the one that we won the Demolition Derby in at the Perth Motorplex. So not only did we come first, but it was the only car that still drove out from the arena under its own power. So this thing is an absolute trooper, I tell you what. And it will be entering in another Demolition Derby coming up in September, October sometime. All we need to do is get a new radiator for the front, fix up this mechanism here so we can close it properly, and she's good to go. At the moment, still runs and drives fantastic, has a leak in the radiator, but we can get it out into our paddock. You can see here, we do have a bit of a track starting to form, and there will be a video coming out shortly on that, not on my channel, on Aussie Garage, so go check them out and give them a subscribe, guys. Anyway, absolute awesome vehicle. Again, thank you to Byron from Down the Shed with Byron for building it for me. And I love it. It's so fun to drive. And next we have an LC Tirana. Ta-da! New car alert. We have an LC Tirana. This is a very beaten up LC Tirana. It was found in the bush. No, I was not the one who found it. A good friend of mine, Nick, had it. He found it way out east somewhere. I would say way out west, but we're west. It's east. As you can see, it's got the Fred Flintstone modification to the floor. And it's just looking a lot worse for wear. But yeah, he approached me. He's like, hey, kind of in a bind. Do you want to buy this car off me? And I'm like, you know what? I've got unfinished business with LC Tiranas. I'm not the hugest fan of them. But some of those OG viewers might remember a blue four-door we had way back at 1,000 subscribers. So, I don't know, that might be a bit of a clue as to what's going to happen with this one. Anyway, so yes, there's an LC Tirana. It is a lot worse for wear. And with the car itself, we also got pretty much a whole nother car and a half in parts. So we have new front cuts, we've got rear cuts, midsections, engines, diffs, seats, panels, doors, all sorts of gear that I'm still yet to go pick up from my friends. So as I say, I have unfinished business with LC Tiranas. Whether we'll finish it with this car or not, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to the next car. Now, as we come over to our main parts of the stable, the best thing is we can get out of the wind. It's absolutely blowing a gale today, so I'm sorry if the microphone picks that up. But we have here a 1990 Toyota Cressida. Absolute beast. Everything's a beast in my stables. I love all my cars. It's really hard to let go of them. As you can see, this one's had some rather tasteful modifications, mainly this radiator. So the reason we brought this car was A, it came up really cheap and I've always wanted an MX-83 Cressida, and B, I needed an extra car for my 10,000 subscriber party / birthday party that we did a couple of weekends ago. And this absolutely fitted the bill. It was running, driving. It just had a smack in the front here. The chassis rails all completely bent up, so this car will never go back on the road. It just needed a new radiator. And as you can see, we've now replaced it because I asked a mate, I'm like, hey, can you bring a radiator up to this birthday party? He showed me a photo of two of them. I pointed out one of them and he brought the other one. So we had to kind of make this work. We've taken inspiration from the 1920s straight up and down radiator grills, and it worked. It worked really well until the engine blew. It is a 7M GE, so they're notorious for blowing head gaskets, and this one will completely seized up. It won't even turn over anymore. But besides that, the car itself is actually pretty clean and rather original inside. What have we done? 314,000 Ks, but you know, it's tidy in here. It's a really good looking vehicle. So, you know, the engine's blowing, so what are we going to do? Not too sure, but it was cheap, so we'll keep it around till we have inspiration with it. Moving on from that, we have a 1993 Mazda 929. Again, another car that showed up relatively cheap. Always wanted it. You know, I might have a bit of a thing for Japanese early 90s luxury cars, if you couldn't tell. So I jumped on it, and when I finally got it, yes, it ran and drove, and most of it works, but it's a bit more worse for wear than I anticipated. So all the interior is falling apart, and it's not as good as I wanted. So this one's coming regulated to paddock duties. What we'll do is we'll take off all the headlights, grills, tail lights, doors, windows, anything that can be used to help repair someone else's. We'll take those off, and then we'll just keep effectively the driving chassis and use that to bomb around in the paddock. You cannot find brand new suspension components for this car. I've searched Australian websites, New Zealand, Japanese, American. I can find the odd bushes, springs here and there, but actual like control arms or wishbone arms, there's just nothing available. It's like these cars never existed to some extent. So if I can't rebuild the suspension in this one, there's really no point just going down that rabbit hole of trying to make it run and drive legally. So yeah, paddock duties for the Mazda 929. Now moving on to my 1989 Toyota Corolla 2 GP Turbo. Quite a mouthful of a name. This is one of only 6,000 ever made, only ever released in the Japanese domestic market. And we found this one out in Kalgoorlie, in someone's backyard. So as you can see, it's, you know, not looking the best, just like all my cars. None of them look in their best condition. A little 1.5 litre turbo engine. And ever since I brought this, like, it's gonna be almost 2 years I've owned this car, I have not touched a single thing on it, because I've just been waiting to do other projects first, and it's getting a good sniff out. What do you reckon, Jasper? Does it pass? No? All right, you keep inspecting, and I'm gonna keep talking about it. Is that all right? You're just completely ignoring me, aren't you? Oh no, dog. Anyway, I like it. I do want to get it running and driving, just because of how unique and rare it is. They're just a real funky little car, so that will get its own video sometime in the future as well. Moving along, 1990 Hyundai S Coupe. Look at this bright yellow banana. How can you look at this car and not feel happy? It is absolutely exciting, unique, funky little thing. This one popped up at a record mate of mine, put it in one of his Instagram stories, about to get crushed. I'm like, no, don't crush that. Do you know what it is? And they're like, not really. I'm like, oh my gosh, you never see these cars anymore. I don't know production numbers, but I can't imagine that there's many left surviving. Since owning this one, I've seen about 4 show up in various Facebook marketplaces around the country. This one was top of the range for 1990. It's got the optional sunroof, 2-tone. It did come with the alloys, but the original owner kept those apparently. Air conditioning, a whole bunch of other features that were optional extras for the 1990 model year. I really like it. It's a quirky little car. As you can see, we've got to do some rust repairs. We started to do some rust repairs around the sunroof here, and I had to stop to get some spot weld drill bits to take all this next layer out. And then yeah, just kind of been parked up and been busy with work and the other projects. So we need to get back into this one. Most of this car now is being done off camera. There is a whole video on the channel where we go through and replace all the brakes, all the suspension. We've put quite a lot of brand new parts into this car, so it's a fun little thing to drive. We just need to get this sorted, and then we'll be able to take it over the pits, and I think that'll be fantastic to take to a few shows. And moving on from that, we have a 19-something Daihatsu Rocky, and unlike the door says, it is unfortunately not the turbo intercooled. This is the 2-litre petrol engine. If we lift the bonnet here, again, got this really cheap for a farm hack. It's got brand new dizzy cap, leads, fuel pump, brand new carburetor. The only thing that I can see wrong with it is that coil has been wired wrong. So once we have a bit of a play with that, this will be absolutely awesome for running around on the farm, moving hay bales around, moving farm equipment. It's proper four-wheel drive, it's manual, so my kids can learn how to drive a manual vehicle. Obviously, we'll have to get that windscreen replaced. Yeah, I think it's going to be just a great little farm hack for around the property now. And that might end up being the recovery vehicle for the track one day when we build the track. So expect a episode on this car coming up sometime in the future as well. Moving along, we have probably one of the quirkiest vehicles in my collection. It's a 1970s Suzuki Frontier hatch. And the story goes that there was a handful of these imported back in the day by Suzuki themselves to test the market. They decided that it wasn't a viable option for the Australian market. They never imported them in big numbers. So this is one of only a handful known to still exist that is actually an Australian delivered car. Even in Japan, where these vehicles come from, they're extremely rare, considering it is the Frontier hatch, which means that the two-cylinder, two-stroke motor, or 360 cc's, is up the front, and it's rear-wheel drive. This one has been upgraded to the big block, which is 446 cc. I know, massive, right? And that's come out of a Suzuki Jimny, and the original block is still sitting in the boot there. So, oh yeah, this thing's been eaten by the old tin worm as well, quite extensively. But I think it's such a unique part of Australian motoring history that we need to at least make it running, driving safe-ish. It does run. I just can't remember how it started because it's two-stroke and it's weird. Yeah. So, oh, and as I was saying before, yeah, in the Japanese market, because of the hatch, it is also extremely rare. So trying to find parts or even rust cuts to go in here is near on impossible. But hey, that's what I like doing on this channel, is buying cars that are impossible to find parts for, apparently. That's hard to find parts. That's hard to find parts. The Mazda 99 is hard to find parts. The Corolla, everything is, oh, I should stop buying rare cars. Right, something that's not so rare is my 1979 Toyota Cressida Bakayundle, the bush car from the bush. Absolutely love this vehicle. Well, it's more of a love-hate relationship. I love that we built it. I love that the concept worked. I wanted to build a running, driving car using only parts that we found in the bush, and we did it, and it works. Except it doesn't work very well. Gee, who would have thought? Anyway, under the hood of this, we have a 5.4 litre Ford V8. We scored the entire car, the Ford BA Ford Fairmont, for 500 bucks. So we used the entire driveline, and we found a shell that could fit the engine, because it's quite a massive engine. And the Cressida was it. So it's got a Hilux rear end, it's got VB manual steering rack, it's got all sorts of components in it that, yeah, we just found in bush wrecks around the Goldfields area. What's happening with this car? It does, well, no, it doesn't run and drive anymore because it thinks it's stuck in drive, and so it won't turn on. So we're going to get up on the hoist and figure out what's going on with the gear shift mechanism there. But the next stage for this, now that we've proven the concept that we can build a running car from just bush parts, it's time to make it actually drive properly. So we've got to put all brand new suspension in it, try to get it to handle, try to get it to ride a bit nicer. So it's going to hang around for quite a while. Really like this car. Right, moving on to the vehicle that I'm sure so many people are here to see. This is our 1969 VF Valiant Pacer, genuine one of 4,500 made, and we found it in the creek, hence the name Creek Bed Pacer, and hence why it has absolutely no floor. We're in the process of taking all that out. This vehicle is awesome. We found it so complete. It's obviously been stripped down now so that we can go about doing a rebuild on it. And this vehicle, I've kind of suffered a bit of scope creep. Let me move out of the wind and tell you what I mean. So originally when we found the Pacer, the idea was just to rebuild it and get it running and driving again and give it a new lease on life. As we started to strip it down and as more sponsors came on board, we started to get a bit carried away, and now it's at a point where it's completely stripped down and I was about to go off to the sandblasters. And bringing it down on the trailer, I was thinking to myself, because you know it's a good 8.5 hour drive on a good day between work and home for me now. It's a lot of time to think about your rusty old projects. A lot of time to think about them. Anyway, thinking this is getting a bit out of hand. This car is going to take way longer than I first anticipated until it ends up being a nuts and bolt restoration. And quite honestly, that's not what I'm about. I'm about getting cars back on the road and getting them so people can enjoy them yet again. If you want to go look at a nuts and bolt restoration, restored Pacer, there are so many out there, and people have done absolutely amazing jobs. You've even got original survivor ones out there. So this one, I want to keep telling the story of being the Creek Bed Pacer. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to pull that floor out, put the new one in, and yeah, pretty much just put all these awesome brand new parts from Hemi Performance on. Hemi Performance are a huge sponsor of this project. Thank you so much to the guys there. And we really did get those parts onto the vehicle. So we've got everything we need to rebuild the diff, rebuild all the suspension, rebuild all the steering and handling, We just need to get that floor sorted and the rust around where the steering box bolts onto the chassis rail, which most Valiants are very notorious for cracking around there. So once those two kind of structural important bits of rust are done, the rest of it, I honestly don't care. We're going back to a David Freiberger ideology, which is don't get it right, just get it running. And I've kind of forgotten about that. So as you can see now, it's sitting on some stands so we can actually work around it a lot easier. Getting it off the trailer and onto here with a massive tractor and the forks was rather interesting. As you can see, it took a couple of goes to get that car off the trailer and moved over to here on this new resting spot. But once we did, this vehicle now is in a position where we can get a lot of work done to it. So we just need to shut up, get into it, and get it sorted. But getting it sorted will be on another episode of Automotive Carnage. We're going to leave this one here today. Thank you so much for joining in, and write down in the comments below which vehicle you like the best or which one you think I'm dreaming about. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you all on another episode of Automotive Carnage. See ya.